To finish the previous video, I add another trim molding not only to cover the gap, but to have the same trim design on the second floor as I'm having on the first one. I'll quickly explain about the process and then move to the content related to this video. 18 gauge nailer with 1-inch nails. 45 degrees, 15 degrees. Before nailing this part, I'm putting the other one, which has also 45-degree angle, and connect it. Otherwise, it's possible that they will not align. Possible. So what I'm doing is putting both of them first, making sure that the angle is right and beautiful, and only then nailing. The next piece, I'm putting it along the wall. I'm marking the location of a little bit more than what I need, and marking a 45-degree angle. The whole room carpet is a typical solution for floors in the United States and Canada. It's cheap, quick to install, absorbs tons of dust, stains, and therefore I hate it. The prep process is the same for pre-finished and unfinished floors. The carpet and anything under it is removed, the floor is sanded, tightened in squeaky areas, and leveled with underlayment. As I mentioned in my previous video, the leveling of parallel joists is taking much more time and effort. This room has perpendicular joists, which made things easier, but there are electrical outlets, stairs, and brick wall in the way. In this video, I will cover and provide solutions to the problem I faced during this install. Who doesn't like carpets? Beautiful. It's beautiful and we're breathing it. I'm working line by line from that end towards this end and focusing on each square. Only then, once the square is done, I'm moving to the next one in the same line, and so on. Now that the prep is partially done, I put the underlayment and install the floor. I'll get back to the outlets later. I'm leaving a small gap here because I'm going to have the fascia board. To the stairs, I'm just attaching it snug, and forget about expansion, gap, and whatever. I mean, I'm forgetting. If you do it on your own, it's your own risk. But the first board is going to be snug, touching the stairs without any kind of gap. Since it's very close to the stairs, I can't use the flooring nailer. I will use the 16 gauge. Ideally, I should use the 2-inch nails, but I'm using 1.5 because it's what I have. Here you can see that even bent boards can be straightened. The installation process is exactly the same as for a pre-finished floor, and if you do it on your own, you can cut the entire bottom of the stair and push the wood underneath. But I decided to cut only the round edges, cause it would have been harder copying the same cut radius on a jigsaw. Now to replacing the outlet. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure there is no electricity here. Now that there is no electricity here, I can proceed. I'm being cautious and double checking with multiple tools that I'm good to continue. I have a nail here and here. I have enough cable, so I'm cutting the existing. The kit comes with this outlet. I hate it, those tiny holes. I just hate it. They're not reusable, the wire doesn't fit inside, and when it does, it's stuck and it's just, I hate it. Instead, I'm going to use this one, where the wires go into the side and then fastened with the screw. Ground, hot, neutral. If you do it on your own, it takes a lot of strength to open this thing. So this is the closed position. I'm only able to open it from the inside. The last thing is to connect some kind of ground cable. Not good. Okay, this took a lot of time. I had to be very creative. Bottom line is that I'll try not to buy this product again. I really want to say that I won't use it ever again, but weird things happen. Regarding the vent, as you can see, the hole is bigger than the frame, but the frame fits perfectly fine on the edge. This edge is from some reason curved. I don't know why. So this is straight, this is curved. I'm thinking instead of cutting, I'll just place it as is, and then when the cover will be on top, it's not really noticeable. And I still have the maximum airflow possible, because I'm not blocking anything. So I'll continue like this. Before nailing the vent frame, I'm going to measure till this area where I need to cut. And I'm going to cut this side, the groove, not the tongue. So I'm going to flip it so the tongue will be towards the wall. Make a little gap for expansion and mark the center approximately. Then I'm going to cut a few more pieces like this and nail them. And the second one, I'm first attaching it to the frame and not to the board below. Once it's snug with the frame, then I'm attaching it to the board below. This way I have a nice line here. Then I'm taking the third board and doing exactly the same thing. First to the frame, and only then to the board below. Beautiful. And if you don't have a straight line here on your first attempt, do it again. Since nothing is nailed down, it's very easy to remove it and start over. If you do it on your own, make sure you like the result before nailing. Then add a few more boards, making sure that everything is snug by pushing it with a pry bar. And I should be careful because there's a cable here. Careful means not nail the cable. Now everything is nailed down, but just in case, I'm going to add a few more nails to the frame. On this side, I measured the length of my board. I kept the tongue, cut the groove, and here, the previous board, I'm going to cut the tongue. For the last throw, this is the piece that I'll use. I cut the tongue and the bottom piece of the groove. This way I can just drop it in or push it in. And I'm working with small pieces because the brick wall is not straight. It's easier to work with smaller pieces. In this area, and probably in others, I'm having an angle. This board is supposed to go like this with the tongue in, but as you remember, I'm cutting the tongue. So what I'm doing now, I'm flipping it in this manner, so it will be upside down, placing it in the right location, marking the beginning, marking the end, and then I'm making a line. Once I've marked the angle, I'm cutting it on my table saw. I'm cutting the angle with this thing. It's called microdial, and it will give me the angle that I need. The gaps that you're seeing will be covered in the finishing process later on with some putty. In other words, they won't be visible. I asked my friend Bill to help me with the finish, since he has many years of experience, and I don't want to mess up the floor at this stage. The drum sander is too big to fit in the corners, so another sander is used instead. The reason why Bill is coming in a straight line but backing off in an angle is to have a smooth and leveled floor where boards meet each other. Think of it as an attack from multiple directions. I covered the return and AC vents, sealed the rooms, but the dust still found its way to the second floor and to other areas. Someone recommended me later using wet bed sheets and hang them instead. Didn't try that yet. We even tried using those blowers to get the dust out, but same result.
I'm going to buff and just, without stating anything, I'll stop in about a minute. and then I'll just describe what just occurred. So the method here is to make sure that you get everything the same and that you don't miss any spots. Every time that I change, I go 7 to 10 times rotation with the sandpaper. Then I move it about 2 to 4 inches, usually 4 inches. And each row I move between 6 and 8 inches. And I keep coming and do the exact same method. And when I get to this side, I come back and I overlap the middle, just to make sure everything's been gotten, but 7 or 10 times rotation, move it 4 inches, and so on, until you get to the edge, come back around this way, not going through your path. And then you've got a slate to look at to see exactly what's been done before you clean it. Looks like it's back to work. I go down this way and I keep going down like this. I've come this far, I'm really only on that edge, but I've come this far so that you do the edge multiple times to make sure that you've gotten rid of any of the sandpaper marks left by the edger.
As you've seen from the current video and the previous, there is no difference between prepping and installing unfinished and pre-finished floors. The difference comes at the finish stage, which partially and sometimes doesn't even exist in pre-finished floors. But the result of unfinished hardwood floors is in super level floors without any boards sticking out or unwanted gaps or lighter spots, since with unfinished floors you can add darker stain to the problematic light areas, like I did in the previous video with the stair nose, and you can also choose any color you would like as finish. On the other hand, the price for labor is higher, and time-wise it is longer and involves much more dust. So even though the same grit of sandpaper was used, this area is a little bit darker because different machines were used. If you remember, here Bill used the buffer, and here some manual tools, but it will go away. And when looking from this side, and I'm walking with my socks at this stage, you don't really see it. Now what Bill is doing is filling the cracks, my mistakes, with filler. Bill is just wiping the material off with damp rag. Second coat. Another light sanding with 150 grit.
Yeah, the edges are sanded first to 150 grit, maybe 180, 150 if there's a little bit more debris, and 180 if it feels like there's relatively little debris, followed by meeting that edge about an inch away from the wall. That way everything is sanded to the same degree, and when you sand these, if you don't basically apply the same type of pressures, you're likely, if you haven't done this a lot, you're likely to get a little bit of a different shine at the end. So my method is I go up lightly next to the edge, this is smooth, and then I go this way, and then all of this room took about under 30 minutes to go all the way around. So that's about the time that would be spent on a room of this size.
And then use the buffer.
And then use the buffer, and then you could see how it will go up about an inch from to avoid hitting that riser. I should mention that we're using water base on the top coat. You have to be very careful not to create any, this is a colloquial, a bald spot, a lighter area where you've actually sanded where the flooring may have a little bit of a hump due to the foundation and the joists. And you have to be careful to watch out to, and in this case, to make sure I didn't do it, I have 150 grit, but I took a piece of 150 grit and very lightly sanded that so that it wasn't quite a brand new paper when I began over here. It doesn't hurt to do this every so often to feel, and that's smooth. So in the case of putting a new floor in, I fill most of them up prior to the final coat, and when you use water base on the final coat, it won't add any color to anything that you put in, any filler that's, most fillers are a little too light. And so before I started with the water base, where I filled, and you could see these areas. In this case, I'm using Early American, something pretty light, and I'm adding a little bit of paint thinner so that it's not too dark on the floor. And then I just go over these and wipe them down. And that way you won't see them. It doesn't take much effort. And so on and so forth.
Thanks.
You can take that right out.
Time taken. Around 3.5 weeks. Cost for materials, around 5 grand. Cost for tools and materials, around 12 grand. Thanks for watching.